Hey everybody, how y'all doing? I'm going to do a quick lesson today on the Prodigal Son. I think this is a lesson that most people who attend church have heard, Bible schools, Sunday schools, preaching, things like that. It gets taught quite a bit. But I've said in other videos, I like to look at multiple things in the story, multiple people's points of view in the story, and kind of see where I fit in. And sometimes that changes, and depending on what I'm going through at that time. I think it's the same thing for all of us. And if we dig into the different stories in the Bible, then we kind of understand or get to understand that God is speaking to us through those stories, of course. And Jesus told parables to teach the people at that time through what they were currently going through at that time. But he said it in a way that was more on their level, to where they better understood that this is what you're talking about, even though you're not using you or God, being Jesus or God, as the topic. And it's the same thing in the story. The father of the prodigal son and the older son, we learn later on in the story, is Jesus through this parable, referring to God being the father and us being the prodigal son. And also at times we could be like the older son in the story, and that's why I like to look at the different people in the story and see where we are in our life and what we're going through, and which one may apply to us today and what we're going through today and what we're facing in our daily walk at that current time that we hear or read that story. And it says in Luke chapter 15, verse 11, it says, "And he said, a certain man had two sons. The younger son said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falleth to me. And he divided unto them his living." Now, this time, everything fell to the children, as it kind of does today. But there's different circumstances, of course, in everything we do today. But at that time, everything that the father owned, and he had servants that we learn about later on in the story as well. So he was a pretty wealthy man. He that stuff would be passed down to his two sons when he passed. So the younger son wanted his now at that time, and the father divided it up, gave him his portion. And then it goes on in verse 13 to say, "And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, and he took his journey into a far country, where there he wasted his substance with riotous living." So he just went wild. He went and didn't realize, wasn't mature enough to understand that just having that amount of money and goods and services and everything that he had, there was responsibilities. There was ways of making sure you didn't spend it all. Like we say today, don't spend it all in one place, and things like that. And he didn't do that. He didn't understand that side of living because he wasn't mature enough yet. So he just went on and spent it all, and did it all pretty quickly. And verse 14 says, "And when he had spent all there, he arose a mighty famine in the land, that he began to be in want." So after he spent everything he had, a famine came across the land, which would have been bad even if he had his money still and had his goods and everything that he was given. But after he had got rid of everything, he was in more trouble with this famine coming in than he realized. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would fain have filled his belly with the husk that the swine did eat, and no man gave to him. So he found a guy that he was able to work for in the fields, which is kind of the same work that he did with his father's house, or at his father's house. And he found this man, and he goes and does some work for him. And it got to the point to where he had to start eating what the pigs were eating, because he didn't have the finances to pay for food. So he ended up living like the pigs. And when he came to himself, he said, "How many hired servants of my father have enough bread to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him," and I like here, he plans what he's going to say. He practices it in the mirror, kind of like we say today. He gets an idea of what he's going to say to his dad to get back on his good side in his mind at this time. he says, Father, this is what he's saying to himself that he's going to say to his father. I have sinned against heaven and before thee, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So then the next morning he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, had compassion, and ran, fell on his neck, and kissed him. So before he was able to even get down the driveway to his father's house, his dad sees him and runs to him. He doesn't even give him time to come in with his head hung low in shame or anything like that. The father runs to him. And the son said unto him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in thy sight, and am no more worthy to be called thy son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe and put it on him. Put the ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring hither a fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is now found. And they began to be merry. So, like I said, his son was still a far way off, and he sees him out coming down the driveway or coming through the field, and he has compassion and love for his son to where he runs to his son, doesn't even give his son time to explain, be upset, be sad, start crying, anything. He goes to him and shows the love of a father immediately, not caring what was going on, not caring about the circumstances. Being as wealthy as he was at that time, I assume he probably heard these things of what was going on with his son and knew the situation before he even showed up. And like I said, as we learned that in the story that Jesus told, the parable, the Father being God, he knows all the mistakes that we're making. He knows what you're going through. He knows what you're facing right now. He knows when you've made mistakes. He knows when you've backslid. He knows when you've quit caring about him. But he's waiting with wide open arms, waiting for us to come back to him. He wants us to understand and come to our senses, just like this boy did here when he came to himself and understood what he was going through. And we understand what we have done. And we realize we need God, and God's the only way to get through it. Then he's waiting there. He's there. He doesn't disown us. He doesn't just throw us out as soon as we say, I can do it on my own, or I don't need him anymore. Because he knows we do, and he knows that we're going to make mistakes. He knows that we're human. He created us, so he knows us better than anybody. So this is where it gets into the second son. And here I think really we are the second son, the older son, a lot of times as well. Because yes, we do have times where we run away from God, or we backslide from God, or we get into situations where we think that we can do it on our own, or we don't. Praying is not the first thing we think of. Reading our Bible isn't a daily activity. Going to church isn't, the first thing we want to do on a Sunday morning when we could sleep in, or a Wednesday night when we just got out of school and we don't want to, continue to go to somewhere else. We want to go home and we want to eat dinner and go to bed, or just got off work and ready to go home, eat dinner, and go to bed, whatever it is. When those aren't our first thoughts and our first activities that we do, sometimes we get into that, tough grind of doing it on our own and thinking, I've done it this long before, God can't really help me, whatever. We all have gone through it. We all will go through it, again. But the second son, the older son, I think is somebody that we are just as much, if not even more than the prodigal son, and how he relates to us. In verse 25 of Luke 15, it says, Now his elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew nigh to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called to one of the servants and asked, What these things are meant for? And he said unto him, the servant said unto him, the son, Thy brother is come, and thy father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him safe and sound. And the brother was angry, and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and entreated him. And he said, and answering said to his father, Lo, these many years do I serve thee, neither transgressed I at any time. So he never ran away, he never left. And yet you never gave me a kid that I might make merry with my friends. So you never gave me a lamb or a baby goat, to where I could have a party with my friends. But as soon as the son was come, the younger son, which has devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed the fatted calf for him, and started a party. And he said to him, the dad said to the son, "Son, thou art ever with me, and all I have is thine. So everything I have is yours." It was meant that we should make merry so that and be glad, for this thy brother was dead and is alive, and was lost and is now found. So he tries to explain to his older son that they're not throwing a party because they like him, the younger son more, or anything like that. They're not throwing a party because of anything to say that the younger son's better than the older son, or any kind of thing like that, where I think we get into a lot. But they were doing it because they wanted to show the younger son compassion and love, and help him to understand that he's safe and sound back at home. He's safe with the father, safe in the father's house, and doesn't have to worry about all the things that he was going through. He doesn't have to worry about eating with pigs. He doesn't have to worry about going through that famine in the land and not having food or money or any way of survival other than living with those pigs. So it wasn't for any other reason other than showing safety and love and compassion. And he had to explain this to the older son. And I think in the same way he's explaining it to ourselves, because how many times have we looked at a fellow church member, or even more so, people who we assume or we think aren't living right, but they have, a brand new car, or just bought a nice house, or got a promotion at work, or makes better grades in school, or whatever. We always look at somebody else and envy or lust or something like that at what's going on in their life. And to me, I think that's where the father is talking to the older son here. It's not about you being better than them or them being better than you. It's about God showing his love, and we all have different ways of needing to see God's love in our life. Yes, it is, rough when you work, 40 plus hours a week, and you're working hard for your family and supporting your family and things like that, and your neighbor gets a new boat or something, but you don't know what's going on in their life just as much as they don't really know everything that's going on in your life. Why don't we work on, or look into trying to be happy for everybody? It's hard, and that's why I think we're just as much the older son in this story as we can be the younger son at times. But respect everybody, love everybody. One thing that the Bible says, I say to the teens a lot. I taught on it a couple weeks ago in another class, but love God, love people. If you do those two things, if you love God and love people, you've sealed the 10 Commandments. You've got that taken care of, because if you love God and you love people, you're not going to break any of those 10 Commandments. You're not going to want to break any of those 10 Commandments, because you're going to stop. You're obviously not going to murder, steal, kill, things like that. But you're also going to get to a point to where you stop lusting, and you're going to stop, envying and wanting what your neighbor has, and being envious over things that you think that you'll never own, or something like that. One, the things that we own, the material things we own, aren't going to heaven with us anyways. They're not going, once we die, they're just material things that are staying in your driveway or wherever you park it. So let's look at it in a different mindset, and let's train ourselves to bring on that bit better mindset of loving God in everything that we do and everything he does for us, understanding that we need him more than we could ever need anything else in this world. And then number 2, love others, love people, which are also the same 2 commandments that Jesus said were the 2 to focus on. Love God and love people will get you so far in understanding that we're all in this battle together. I've probably said this in every video I've made, but we're all in this crazy life together. We're all going through the same struggles, same disappointments, same everything. Some obviously are different than others in different things, but all of us as a whole are facing sadness, disappointment, scared, anything like that. But we're also, if we trust each other and help each other and love each other, we're also facing happiness and love and kindness and compassion, just like the father did here for his younger son, and then understanding and explaining understanding to his older son. We can do the exact same thing if we just show that we love each other and care about each other, and put forth the best that we can to help each other get through this crazy life together. So thanks, guys. I'm going to get back on here soon with another video. But thanks for hanging out, and we'll get to see you again soon.